Mike.
Is Peter on yet?
everybody. Okay, I'll ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, followed by a moment of silence. And please remember Bob Armistead, our retired IDA member and chairman, who was a great guy, who passed away on June 16th. And also remember all those affected by the coronavirus and the families of those who have unfortunately passed away. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
All right, Gene, roll call.
Benelli?
Here.
Benelli?
Here.
Paduk?
Here.
Amo?
Here.
Nagastokis?
Present.
Benetton?
Here.
Feeney?
Here.
Fagione?
Here.
Hines?
Here.
Kulisek?
Here.
Lujan?
Present.
Menuda?
Here.
O'Donnell?
Here.
Riskevich?
Here.
Sassy?
Here.
Sierra?
Here.
Stiganga?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Chautel?
Here.
Tui?
Here.
Bureau?
Here.
Gresham?
Here.
21 present.
21 present. Okay. All right. If there are no objections, consent resolution number 10 and 11, will be included on the agenda. Also, if there are no objections, some resolutions will be voted by voice vote, and I will identify those, and some are, and not by roll call, and only respond if you are a no vote or an abstention. Okay, public participation will be postponed to a future legislative session, but the public is invited to send their written comments via email to jrampen, that's JRAMPPEN, at orangecountygov.com. jrampen with 2 P's at orangecountygov.com. Okay, Majority Leader Benelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the minutes of February 6th, March 5th, April 3rd, and May 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 1A, receive and file. Number 1, Gene.
You can just keep it on you if you want, I'll just read.
Okay. Keep it on what? I'm sorry.
Just keep it on you, and I'll just read.
Okay.
Legislators Benelli, Fagione, Kulisek, Riskevich. Local law introductory, number 11 of 2020. A local law relating to the sale of certain county real property known as the Grand Street properties, authorizing consideration of offers other than in response to advertisement, and authorizing the sale of such property or properties to other than the highest responsible bidder.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Benelli?
I'm sorry to say, Jim Kulisek here.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
The sale of these, the county purchased these about 6 years ago, or 7 years ago now, and they came off the tax rolls. Some of them weren't on the tax rolls, like the YMCA and et cetera, et cetera. But when they do go back out for sale, the monies that are received are going to go to the general fund. Is that correct?
Antoinette?
Yes, this is Antoinette Reed. As the local law provides, it reads section 5, the proceeds from the sale will first be utilized to pay off any outstanding debt with respect to the purchase. And then second, the balance would go into the general fund. And that's pursuant to County Law 215 subdivision, I believe, 7.
Okay, well, if during the sale negotiations, this resolution is to sell not to the highest bidder, if necessary, to whatever best fits the county's purposes or outlook. I would like to see, since we took these things off, or could have been sold to tax-paying citizens, I would like to see the county purchase these, and then sell them to the highest bidder. That way, we entities back then, and the city of Newburgh hasn't received any of those taxes. In the future, if we could include somewhere in this resolution or RFP that tax-paying entities should be one of the criteria for sale, so the city of Newburgh can reap some of the taxes that have been lost over the 6 or 7 years, and years past actually, when they've not been on the tax roll at all. But these are 3 majestic buildings in Newburgh, and they're worth a couple of dollars, and the tax revenue the city of Newburgh could reap from them would be greatly appreciated and well earned. So if they're an RFP process and thought of selling to whoever, if it be somebody lower than the asking price, I would appreciate the consideration that it would be a tax-paying entity to pay to sell them to. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Can you
Jimmy
see my
O'Donnell has
hand
his
up?
hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me hit this, okay. Who's got his hand up? Jimmy O'Donnell, okay. Sorry.
Yes.
All right, so I agree with legislator Kulisek. That is exactly why we put them back on for sale, is to get needed revenue for the city of Newburgh. So certainly when those RFPs come in, the priority will be businesses that are going on the tax rolls, not non-for-profits. So that's exactly why we did it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim and Jim. Okay, any further discussion? Okay.
Mr.
roll
Chairman?
call. Oh, yes, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to Mr. Kulisek's comments, I didn't hear a second. I would second that to make sure it's included.
Okay. Now, we do, Antoinette, we do get the last bite on the sale, or is it, does it proceed with the resolution?
Yes, if you read the local law, it's provided in, I believe, section 3, last sentence, regarding a resolution of the legislature approving any sale relating to the property or portion thereof.
Okay. So then it's pretty much what Jim's motion is pretty much taken care of there. I mean, if the real property is going to look at getting a tax-paying entity to purchase this. So, I mean, we have the right to refusal anyway. So it's pretty much a moot issue, is it not, in large measure?
Well, it's not a moot issue. I would consider it something for the, when we get the RFPs in, the Commissioner of General Services, you review the criteria, and then you weigh that against all the other criteria to determine whether that's an entity you wish to sell to. So something to consider. You can give that more weight than other criteria, but that's why you want to do this local law. It provides latitude so that if you got a bid from, a not-for-profit, you wouldn't have to take that off from the, let's say federal or state government. You wouldn't be bound to take that. You would just, you would consider it, but you consider all factors and criteria.
Okay, so would this be in section 3, or would it be a different section?
Are you requesting to amend this local law? Because you can't.
You can't. It's got to sit on the desk for 10 days, right?
Right. It would have to go back to the committee. So at this point, it's a factor. When the RFPs, the proposals come in, you review them. You'll be working on whoever's on the committee to review the RFPs, and and then you factor it in, and then you make a determination who you want to sell to. Or if you don't like any of them, you don't think it's the best offer you can get, you reject all proposals.
Right.
And then go out again, and you might want to change the criteria then, to give that more weight or total weight. That's up to you, working
Right.
with Commissioner of General Services,
essence,
county attorney.
In essence, I think Jim's concerns are covered, but we always have that right to reject. So we don't want to delay this local law, because otherwise it's got to go back to committee and sit on the desk for 10 days with the revision. So I would suggest we move ahead. You okay with that, Jim Kulisek, or?
Well, that wasn't my intention at all, to change the local law. It was just the county took the properties And if it wasn't for used for county purposes, actually the county should have been paying taxes for the past 6 years. But going ahead, anybody who purchases the property, I don't care if they're not for profit or not, they can still pay the taxes if there's a one-liner in there somewhere. They don't need, if they really want the property and they can pay the taxes, that'd be all well and good, not for profit or not.
Okay. Well, I think your concerns are duly noted, but I think we should vote on the resolution and put this out there and see what comes back. And if it doesn't come back to our satisfaction, we can always reject it. So I would suggest we move ahead. Do you want to take your motion off the floor? Because otherwise,
Didn't make a motion. He
Oh,
did
you
not
didn't
make
make
a
a
motion. Nope, he just made a comment.
Okay.
So
Duly
ready
noted.
to go.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Benelli,
Yes.
Paduk,
Yes.
Amo,
Yes.
Nagustakis, Benton, Cheney, Fagione, Hines, Kulisek, Lujan, Menuda, O'Donnell, Riskevich, Sassy, Sierra, Stiganga, Sutherland, Tortel, Tui, Bureau, Brescia, 21 ayes.
Okay, number 2, which is also a roll call resolution.
Legislators Benelli, Fagione, Benton. Resolution authorizing the Commissioner of General Services to issue a request for proposals for a diversity intervention initiative and making a supplemental appropriation to the 2020 Orange County budget for the legislative board pursuant to 2.02Q of the Orange County Charter.
Second.
Mute your phone, Kevin Darian. We're getting feedback, please.
Yeah, I got to get back to my screen. How do I get back to my screen? Shoot. Where's meeting? Sorry, hold on one second. I went to go to see who had their hands up and darn.
Steve.
Okay.
Yourself? Are you on there? Okay, Aaron, you're
I'm ready to join. Yeah. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, and see you.
Yes.
Nick, how do I get back? Okay. I can only see John Bureau. I meant to go to that screen with the people that, the legislators.
You're back.
Oh, my.
We can see you.
We can see.
We can see you.
I don't know, Gene. I'm trying to get back to where I was.
Are you on your iPad?
Yeah, I'm on my iPad and I hit something. I just see the calendar. So if I swipe up, will that get me back to?
There's an
Be
arrow
able
on the top
to,
corner. Hit the
Yeah, I
arrow,
know there
top
is, but it's
left.
not there,
Yeah.
Kevin, on this. I know there usually is because that's what I wanted to do.
touch the center of the screen and there should be a gray bar that pops down with a left arrow in the left corner.
Nope. Yeah, Gene's gonna go
Isn't
get Carrie
IT
in.
on this call?
I see
What do
Lori
you
right
see?
now, and I see Lori, and I see a small picture of me, but I see the legislative calendar to the left. Team meetings. I guess I could try to join the meeting again. Is that no? Don't touch anything. All right, bring me
No,
back.
because you're already in it.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. I'm back to. I might just stay on the screen. Katie, you're going to have to help me with this.
I'll monitor the hands.
You monitor the hands. Thank you so much. Okay. Who has their hand up?
Right now, nobody.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right. We're on number 2. You read it. Right?
Yes, but no one has their hand up.
I don't know how to actually push what button to put my hand up, Mr. Chairman, but I have comments. I can do
Okay.
this.
Speak up. Yeah. Just speak up, Mike. That's okay. Okay.
All right.
Or
Thank
Katie.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to applaud the efforts of the entire legislature for recognizing the need for this Diversity Intervention Initiative, RFP. It's been a long time coming, and I thank everyone involved for moving forward on this issue. However, after our concerns regarding the scope of the initiative were expanded to include the whole county and current concerns regarding cultural, racial, and religious conflicts, I can support this initiative. My caucus, which is made up of it's a very diverse caucus, including 2 Latinos, feel the need to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, or any name that you want to call it. So there is oversight other than the 4 white legislators, our white attorney, and our white commissioner of general services. I think it's important that the RFP add a whereas clause to include a diverse committee to address the very issues that we're talking about. So therefore, I would propose to amend the resolution and add a third whereas that would say that the legislature wish to form a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee or a committee of your choice to have input and suggestions for the RFP, as well as having all reports and plans and comments addressed to this committee.
Lujan seconds it.
Okay. Lori, did you have your hand up?
No one has their
Yeah, I
hand up.
think
How do you
Chairman
do
had
that?
his up first, and I had mine.
No, there's no hands up.
Okay.
So if you want to speak, go ahead, because there's, oh, wait a minute,
Right.
now I have hands up. I have Amo, Paul,
I didn't put my hand up, but I definitely want to speak.
All right, let's go to Mike. Let's go to Paul and then Michael Amo.
Got a big aim? Echo.
Yeah, I can hear that too.
Yeah. Am I up?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah.
Amo,
Okay.
Paul are up, and I heard Lori.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Paduch, I appreciate your comments. However, I'm not sure I see the need for a committee because as I understand it, these RFPs are going to come back to the entire legislature for all of us to review and discuss together and then make a decision on where we want to move forward from there. So I don't see the reason for such a committee. Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Amo, or Caucus Leader Amo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had spoken to Mr. Paduch about this earlier today. And, I think the idea might be a good one to have a group to review it. I think his points are well made, but I think it's premature at this point. Any RFP has a number of steps, as Paul has said, that allow us to review it at the legislative level. So I don't think we need to insert a committee at this point. In many ways, it might even be duplicative of another committee we may want to use at a later point. So I think it's a little premature for us to move on that at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. Katie?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I believe Lori wanted to speak, but her hand isn't up, so I don't know if that's still
Lori,
the
did you want to
case.
speak? Go ahead, Lori.
Lori?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
she's
sorry. Yes,
unmuted.
I'm here. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I fully support having the diversity initiative, a diversity, equality, and inclusion committee. Everything that Ron could run through that. I see that we've done studies before, and sometimes they fall by the wayside. I think if we had a committee appointed and ready to receive that study and has already been working on what we need to do in this county to make life better for our Black and brown communities. I look at our diversity on our board. We don't have a diversity on the legislative body. We have two Latino members of our body, no African-American members in our legislative committee, and 4 women, including myself, not a very diverse group. If we do move forward, I would ask everybody to please support this. This is very important, especially right now. We need to not exclude any group, whereas it has to be, everything. And we need to have somebody looking at this, not just us, not our lily white board, but we need to have members of the community from the Black and brown communities and community leaders to guide us in this decision. We as white people do not feel what a Black person or a brown person feels walking down the street. It's not our feelings we're subject to white privilege. So we need this committee. We need it now, not later, not kick the can down the road. And we need to have members of the Black and brown communities sitting on this. Thank you.
Michael, do you still have your hand up or you just didn't?
No,
put it down?
I have Antoinette, Jimmy O'Donnell, and then Michael put his hand up again, or he forgot to take it down.
Michael, were you up again?
Which Michael?
Again, I'm
Michael.
up again, yeah.
Okay,
We call
I'm
you
up.
Mike and
But I had
Michael
Antoinette
Amo,
first.
Michael.
okay.
I had Antoinette first.
Go ahead, Antoinette. I see 4 raised hands just came up across my screen.
Okay, I'm tracking it for you. Don't worry
Okay,
about that.
Antoinette, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. If you read everyone got a copy of the scope of services that we're requesting from the consultant. And when you read section B1, suggested services, and you go down and it talks about recommending ongoing community approaches to balance the needs and interests of communities in the county. And it talks about recommending the establishment of ongoing oversight committee of independent and apolitical participants that reports quarterly to the legislature. So that's already in that we're expecting the consultant to work with us. And I think when Mr. Amo put together his proposal, the whole thought process was that this would be taken out of the legislative hands and it would go into the communities. And this professional would meet with leaders in the community and have them put together what they believe the interests of individual communities are. So that's why the model, we're sort of trying to dictate the model, but the RFP already has the model in it for the consultant to build upon. So that, let's say, for instance, he wanted to go to Newburgh or to Goshen or to Kirs Joel. He would look for leaders within that community or members of the community at large who would want to participate and build upon this diversity initiative. So that's the purposes of the RFP. That's why we're hiring the consultant to put that together. So we're putting this into independent hands, to a consultant's hands, to tell us what each community or whatever area we're talking about to come up with members to build up the diversity initiative and come to us to tell us what we need to do. So it's really a grassroots or, building through the communities coming to us versus us going down to the communities telling them what they need to do.
Okay. Jimmy O'Donnell was next, Katie?
Yes, correct.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. So I'm in favor of a committee. I've had conversations with a few legislators and the county exec. All right. I'm not in favor of what the Democrats put out, that Michael Paduch sent out. Most of what's in that 5 or 6 page document can be addressed during the committee process. But I'll tell you who should be running this is us, not an outsider coming in, not spending $100,000 of taxpayer money. It's our job. It's our responsibility. So Mike Amo was the one who came up with this. Hey, I'm putting on the floor, and not to vote on it today, but to have a further discussion in the days in the near future. But Mike Amo should be chairing this. Some of the people, and Lori Tortel talked about the diversity. I'll name the people that I think should be on it. Fred Cook is the chair of the Human Rights Commission. Fred Watson, Orange County Community College chair of the Board of Trustees. Jim Rollins, head of the Orange County NAACP. Tamara Hunter, she is our Deputy Commissioner in Human Resources in charge of our affirmative action program. We should have one representative from the Republican side of the House on the legislature, as well as one Democratic legislator. We should have the president of the Orange County Chiefs of Police on this committee. We should have a representative from the Orange County Executive's Office. And then we should have Chairman Brescher and Lita Bonelli. Between the two of you, pick one non-government Orange County resident to be on it. Same for you, Mike Paduch. You pick one non-government person to be on it besides the people I named. And same to you, Leader Amo. You get to pick one person. And last, Lynn Sion from the Orange County Chamber should be on this. And some of the things they got to look at when they convene, review the county's policies on hiring, training, community relations, allocation of resources, or just a few. But we have to have this discussion together. We can't have press conferences. We can't be like Washington, D.C. If one person puts up an idea, the other side goes against it. So I was glad to hear you, Mike Paduch, come out strong that we should be working together today on this. I didn't get that impression when you had your press conference. So I'm glad you took an about face on that, and let's work together and get something done. I'm going to be voting no on this because I don't think we should spend $100,000. I think we can put the committee together ourselves and look and take an in-depth look at everything. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jim. Who's next, Katie?
Rob Sassy.
Rob, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an electrical storm coming through here like it was the other day, so if I lose you, that's why. So sorry, but I'll try to be as quickly as I can here. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank Legislator Amo for the time and effort he put into his very timely resolution. And I know Mike puts a lot of time, effort, and thought into what he does, as well as my Democratic colleagues who held a press conference the other evening and presented a plan. And I know a lot of effort went into that as well. And I am totally in favor of having that broader conversation, but I would like that conversation itself to be more inclusive and more factually based before, expending $100,000 of taxpayer money, especially in light of New York State being $13 billion in the red and the unknown that we're faced here in Orange County with the drop in sales tax as a result of the COVID pandemic. So I'm a little leery of that. I agree with Legislator O'Donnell that the creation of a panel internally made up of a wide variety of racial and ethnic backgrounds that can tap into what's already existing here in Orange County. Our Human Resource Department, our Human Rights Commission, Social Services, the Sheriff, the District Attorney, legislators, just to name a few, at no cost, no additional cost to Orange County taxpayers. I think we should gather more information and more facts, and let's have an open and honest, not an exclusive press conference or meeting all together. And let's look at what Orange County is doing right, what we may not be doing so right, and how can we improve it. We're seeing chaos in many of our major cities. It's a shame. And as a realtor, I see people flooding up here from New York City and making Orange County their home. Ask yourself why. Are we that bad? Are we that evil? There must be a reason. That speaks volumes. So let's have that all-inclusive conversation. I'm not in favor, I'm a no vote on expending $100,000 at this time, but maybe at some future point after we've gathered the facts and had an open and all-inclusive conversation across the aisle, maybe we'll go that direction. And for the record, Laura, I'm disappointed you didn't mention Asians. I have an Asian son. Many of you know that. Mm-hmm. I love him dearly. I want him to grow up in a county and a state and a nation that welcomes and accepts him. So yeah, I get it. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Who is
Mr.
next?
Chairman, I believe Mr. Amo has wanted to speak again, yes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if that's true, so.
That's true.
Okay.
I do too.
I have you, Lori.
You want me to go ahead, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, Mr. Amo.
Yeah, no,
I'd like to speak as well, please.
Lori, I have you after Amo. You're good.
On the positive thing, I think Legislative Council Reed hit the point that was in the resolution for the RFP that we're talking about. We did think about bringing a diverse committee together. We did think about that, and that was one of the models we had in mind. So when I talked about premature, that's really the issue I was raising, as well as some duplication that I think might be out there. And it's better to wait and develop it that way. With respect to, the issue that Mr. Sassy raised regarding money and Mr. O'Donnell, I certainly appreciate it. I understand the fiscal circumstances, but this process will be protracted. By the time we get an RFP back, by the time we get any discussion, and by the time we even come to thinking about whether or not we want to execute a contract with anyone and spend $100,000, maybe a couple of months, if not more. At which point we're getting a better picture of our financial situation and clearly a better picture of our cultural diversity problems, or diversity problems that may warrant even that or more. It could get worse. So we need to move now and sit back. And I think I've been saying that as a legislator for over 20 years. If the county government could have jumped in and put together a committee to do it, boy, I would have liked them to do it in 1998 and 99 and 2000. We needed it then. It's time now.
Okay,
who's
Mr.
next,
Chairman.
Katie?
I actually made a mistake. It's Kathy, then Lori, then Tom, and I believe Paul wants to speak again. Correct, Paul?
Rob still
Kevin
has his-
Darian
Rob still has
also
his
has
hand up,
been
too.
trying to raise his hand, but able
Rob,
to.
you-
How do you
Okay,
do
all
that?
right,
Put him
so
on the
let's
list
go
to
with
take,
Kathy,
please.
and I'll keep, yes, I will. Thank
Okay,
you.
go ahead. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oops. Hi. Okay. Thank you. I have to say that looking at this, my biggest concern is probably the money as well, and also a duplicate of services. So I do believe that there are issues that we need to address, that we need to work together. I also was a little bit upset that, this was brought out in a news conference, and it tried to portray that we weren't all on board with realizing that there are issues and things that we have to look at and address. One of the things that I just want to put on the record is that we do have a Human Rights Commission, and the Human Rights Commission's primary purpose, and this is actually written on the site, is to foster mutual respect and understanding among all groups in Orange County, including but not limited to race, color, religion, sexual orientation, preference, gender, military, veteran, disability, national origin, ancestry, and ethnicity. So we do have to address this. I think that looking at a committee at some point in the future to bring the people together, like Legislator O'Donnell brought or mentioned in his comments, is a really good idea. I am not really sure that, going ahead with allocating money without knowing what direction we're looking to go, or even defining it, because it was written as one thing, and as of yesterday, it's now being asked to be changed and amended without discussion and, from the whole legislature. Thank you.
Okay, who's
Okay,
next?
you have
Katie?
Lori.
Lori, go ahead, Lori.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. I agree with Legislator O'Donnell, and I also do not want to spend the $100,000. And Rob, you're right. I did miss the Asian community, and forgive me for that. There's a lot of communities out there that and genders, races out there that are stereotyped. But what Antoinette said, I'm a little confused, is counter to what Legislator Reshevik said about the report coming back to us, where Antoinette says it's coming back to a committee. So then what's the problem with us forming a committee? And what's the problem with us having this committee and these community members do this, and our Human Rights Commission and our Social Services Department, and not spend $100,000? I keep hearing, we're so far down on sales tax in the state and in the county due to the COVID pandemic. Why are we going to spend $100,000? We've asked for voluntary layoffs from our employees. We've sent out incentives to get people to retire early. All of these were cost-saving measures, and now something that we can do in-house without having to have a consultant do it. We're going to throw $100,000 at. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to our employees that are helping us by taking the temporary break. Thank you.
Okay.
Who's next, Katie?
Mr. Chairman, you have Mr. Fagione.
Okay. Legislator Fagione, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, fellow legislators. A yes vote to the second resolution here before us today is not to write a check for $100,000. A yes vote today is to send out an RFP, to seek an RFP in return. So a yes vote today is not spending $100,000. A no vote is not spending $100,000. We are not cutting a check on a yes vote today for $100,000. And I just want that to be reiterated again and again here. A yes vote is not writing a check for $100,000. We are seeking proposals from experts, and from what I understand, speaking to Mr. Amo, experts who may perhaps be around the world who can put in a proposal. When those proposals come in, this whole legislative body will have a chance to review them, discuss them. We'll go through the committee process, a process which all of us can participate in if we choose. That process continues month after month. So just as a reminder, a yes vote to this resolution is not writing a check for $100,000. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that clarification, Legislator Fagione. Who's next, Katie?
Lujan.
We have Legislator Vuskevich.
I don't actually have something for a flag to post up.
No,
So.
I have you go. I do have you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a point of information, we're debating a resolution to modify.
Yeah, we're debating the amendment, not the
Amendment,
resolution
excuse
proper,
me.
even though some legislators have spoken to the resolution proper.
Okay, fine. That's fine. I want to make sure we're clear.
Speaking
Thank
to the
you.
amendment, please.
Yeah, actually, my comment has more to do with the main resolution. So as long as we're discussing the amendment, I'll save my comment for later.
Okay, sounds good. Who's next, Katie? Kevin Darian?
Legislator Lujan.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin Darian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there was a lot of great comments that were made, and I respect the input because especially because it's coming from both sides. And I will say this, for those of you who tuned into the press conference, we actually did give a lot of good points to some of the things that were coming out of the district attorney's office. Things like the police anti-bias training, things that we actually talked about putting in the budget last year. So we definitely did talk about that, and also things having to do with body cameras. So that's not entirely true. What I will say is this. We've discussed this. We've discussed a lot of issues that impact communities of colors, at least in the time I've been in this legislature. And oftentimes, I will be honest, it oftentimes feels like those are not issues that have been a priority. Now, going to this specific document, this specific RFP, when we first started talking about this RFP, it was very, very focused on KJ, and that's a very important issue. It was a conversation that was long pending. There was money that was spent before, about I think it was $200,000 that was spent in a previous plan originally, and here we were talking about let's try to see how we can create a model, and I understand that. I think it's an important issue for us to be discussing. Unfortunately, and I think that this is where the conversation turned, and thankfully, is that we started talking about, well, what's going on with all the individuals who are marching. 50 states, we're seeing people who are protesting across all 50 states because we're seeing and we're talking about the need for inclusion, the need for equity, the need for racial justice. And so that's what we're talking about, right? So this DEI that we're talking about is not just about this RFP. It's about discussing issues that have long been ignored or issues that we could be discussing in the future. And it costs you nothing. The DEI is literally made up of senior staff members here in Orange County. And also, yes, like Jim O'Donnell mentioned, it would be great, it would be necessary to have civilians or individuals from the community, because as we know, our senior staff are predominantly white and not from the communities of color that we need to have at that table. And so again, our starting point was let's see how we can work on this RFP even more. Let's add to it. Let's give it some teeth. Let's make it a compromise. Let's make it something that is uniting us together on and send a message to our community across Orange County that we are trying to be more inclusive, not only on the issues outside, but the issues inside. Because ultimately, it comes down to how we recognize and understand racism. Another point which was included in that document that some of you might have read, it wasn't just about the DEI, it was also about training. Because there's a lot of the words like privilege and racism that we don't also necessarily understand the same way. And you know what? That's okay, because we're all growing human beings. But this is also very important. We should be having trainings made available to all our county employees, so that we can be on the same playing field about how we discuss racism and injustice and sexism and all these horrible things. Let's start internally. It costs us absolutely nothing. All we're asking is that you include this DEI, that will be an internal committee that will be made up of individuals from your party, our party, the Independents, and others. Let's work together and let's move forward with this resolution. And I will say this, in terms of compromise, I do not believe and do not agree with this RFP. And I'm going to tell you why. I see holes in it. I see holes in it as a matter of mediation and conflict resolution. If conflict resolution was so easy to address, we would probably have done it a long time ago. If only cost $100,000. And the reality is that the challenges that we're facing in Orange County are so many, and we know that. I believe that it is not going to be able. We're not going to be able to achieve that. But I'm willing to. We'll vote on it if we're willing to add this DEI. And last I checked, I believe there was a motion on the floor and a second. And so again, I say this. I would love to work with everybody to try to truly address racial and economic justice and social justice for all: Asian, LGBT, people living with mental health and disabilities, and all those we have not mentioned today, because we should be doing that. And I think that everyone here wants to do that. So let's put our money where our mouth is. You don't have to pay for anything for a DEI. You add it, and then we'll see about the RFP, because we're still going to be discussing it anyways. I'll vote for the RFP, but if it doesn't have a DEI in it, it doesn't really meet anything that we really need for our people. Thank you.
Okay, Katie, who's next?
You did have Legislator Menuta's hand up, and I don't know because now it's not there. Mr. Menuta, are you still interested in speaking?
Thank you, Legislator Benelli. Yes, thank you. Thank you for being recognized. This is a diverse organization that we run in the county. We do have a Human Rights Commission. I would think that their job, as stated by Legislator Stenenga, why have they not brought this forth? But, we've had individual legislators do that. They're experts in this area, and we're hire and pay them for their expertise. So, I would have liked to see that come from them. And if they're not addressing that with us directly, I would question why. I do know that the legislature would like to participate in their meetings, but for whatever reason, on an annual basis, they hold their meetings when we have our regular meeting. So, I think there's some internal workings that need to happen here that I think we already have in place, to be quite frank. So to that end, spending $100,000 on a study, it's a study. To be adding, or we are speaking to the adding portion, is that correct? Just to make sure I'm clear.
Lost you, Joe.
Mr. Menudo, we are addressing the amendment to add
Yes.
a provision for the DEI committee.
Thank you. And so I am addressing that item, and inclusion. I would like to see first generation Americans included in that as well. I happen to be one of those. I'm very fortunate to serve on the legislature and represent that portion of the community as well as all of the others that I represent and have gone to high school with and at grammar school with in the Newburgh and Large City School District. There wasn't a single person that I wouldn't have called my friend in those days. So, at this time, I think these things are premature, and I think we have a lot of these things in place, and I think more discussion needs to happen on it before we can, definitively act on something of this nature. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else, Katie?
Legislator Hines.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. I just have a question for Legislative Council. As I understand the charter, only the chairman can create special committees to advise or work with the legislature. Is that correct, Antoinette?
He does create it, but it's confirmed by the legislature. So he sort of makes it's sort of like an appointment with a confirmation.
Right, but it's not up to this body to create the committee. The chairman has to say he wants to do it. Isn't that correct?
Well, he can make that recommendation, and then by your legislative body, you would approve it.
Right. So is this premature?
Well, I wouldn't say it's premature. I think, it's sort of setting the direction for where you want to go. So you can do that.
Well, it sounds like the makeup of the committee won't be determined today. I think what we're looking for is an assurance. It sounds like most of the speakers are in favor of getting advice from experts that are already employed by the county and coming before the committee process.
Right.
So it seems like if that's the direction we go, the committee doesn't have to necessarily be linked to this, but the body as a whole could go forward. But I remember in the past, I thought that when special committees were trying to be created by the legislature, I believe it was you, Legislative Council Reed, that said that the chairman only had the authority to do that. It may have even been in past legislatures before Chairman Brescia was here. It might have been in the Pillmeyer chairmanship, if I remember correctly.
Well,
And,
there's some discrepancy in the legislative manual about that, different sections regarding special committees and commissions. So not sure really. This almost sounds like an advisory commission or an advisory committee, and he has certain powers for appointment, but it's subject to the approval of the legislature.
Right, but wouldn't he have to create it first and then the legislature puts it together? That's how I understand the process in the past.
Well, you're creating the committee, now you're saying you want a committee, and then you come back and you form the committee based upon his recommendations for members.
Right, but I don't think that's going to be handled today. So my suggestion would be that if the entire legislature seems to be in favor of this, I haven't heard anybody say they don't want any system in place such as this. So it seems like there's enough comments out there that people are in favor of this type of advice that I don't think we need to get hung up on that as much as we do. Are we going to spend the $100,000? Are we going to do it without spending the money with the committee that could be created? Those really seem to be the issues to me. Do you want to spend the 100? Do you want to put the 100 aside? Or either way, do you want to go forward? Because the makeup of the committee that some have suggested left out other areas. So it seems to me as if you'd need various entities on the committee and even subcommittees to deal with the various issues. Because even the experts that's going to come about, if this proposal goes forward, I don't think will be great at doing everything. They're not going to deal with racial issues, religious issues, community issues, whatever may arise, because if we're talking about this being a model, we're talking about being a plan to deal with everything. So at this point, I think we're getting hung up on the makeup of the committee more so than do we want to spend the $100,000 or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think that's bogging down the whole resolution, to be honest with you. I mean, Michael Amo's been talking about this for 5 years. Leadership has talked about it. And we brought it through 2 committees. There were 3 dissenting votes at the Rules Committee. And then Kevin, you and Mike Paduch actually asked, I believe, in the first whereas for cultural, racial, and religious conflicts to be included, which they were, passed unanimously at Ways and Means. And I think we should move forward on it. I certainly open to inclusion, especially with the brown community, the black community, the Asian community, and others, with respect to county jobs and so much more in Orange County. But I think the amendment, I think what Jimmy O'Donnell spoke about was more thought about and in a methodological, in a good methodology, excuse me, rather than the amendment. But this does not preclude us from doing that down the line. We're asking for RFPs. Let's see what come back in the RFPs. And I would definitely listen to the suggestions that Jim O'Donnell made, Lori, Mike Paduch, Kevin Darian. But to add that amendment today, I think is, which by the way, should have gone through committee. You just think about this last minute and you have a press conference in Newburgh where the rest of the legislature was not invited. Some members might have come down there, myself included, but we weren't included, and it was a last minute thing. And to do it at the midnight hour when it's already included in the resolution. And
it's not.
There's so many other avenues. Wait a minute, let me finish, please. There's so many other avenues that could be brought into this down the road. So it's not excluding anything. And I will certainly listen to suggestions with leadership and all members of the legislature with respect to this committee. So I'll be voting against the amendment because I think we already have that aspect in it. And that's my opinion. So any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hold on a second. If you're looking for more speakers, I need to clarify something here. Legislator Stiganga's hand is still up. Is that correct? Or you just forgot to lower it?
How do you do that?
You go back to where you put your hand up and it'll tell you to lower your hand. And she just did. I also had Legislator Cheney's. You put it, do you want to speak?
I just have one question. Is probably
Excuse me, just for a point of order here, under our rules, first we should have other legislators who haven't spoken yet speak, and then you go to other legislators who want to speak again.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Okay,
who hasn't spoken that wants to speak?
Well, I saw Barry's hand before, but I don't know if it's there again. So if Barry
Kevin asked the questions I was going to seek answers to. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. So then I have Mr. Kulisek.
Yes, thank you. Couple of comments. Legislator O'Donnell and Legislator Sassy both spoke on a couple of people who they would like to see, or positions of people they would like to see on this committee. We're calling it the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And all of these names, most of these names, Mr. O'Donnell, had come up in our conversation in the caucus. And I, being a member of a biracial family also, I'm feared for my grandchildren. I do. For them to walk the street as a 10 or 12 or 13 or 15-year-old and what may happen down the road. So this is personal to me. And another couple of comments, $100,000 right now. I think in the previous resolution, the sale of the properties in the city of Newburgh, yes, we had been planning to sell them, but now it's a fire sale because we are in a dire straits with the budget coming up. And the Human Rights Commission, I don't believe the Human Rights Commission members are paid anything. I think it's all voluntary. So I would like to see something to say that some of these positions that were raised by legislators O'Donnell and Sassy would be definitely included, which is part of this amendment. So I'll be voting yes for the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Katie, who else has
Well, actually, the only one I do have Mr. Paduch and Mr. Fagione. I'll reserve my comments to the end, so I'm tracking this, but I haven't spoken as of yet. So if you want to go ahead with Mr. Paduch, I don't see any other new people other than myself.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the whole purpose of this, and Antoinette explained that down the line we can form this committee. Nowhere in this resolution that we're looking to pass today does it say anything about an oversight committee. I don't care what the name of the committee is or what it's going to be down the road. I like Mr. O'Donnell's suggestions. So that third whereas could read just whereas the legislature does wish to form a committee to identify the issues, or however you want it to read, but it does not say anything about an oversight committee in this resolution, and that's why I've asked to amend it to include that.
Okay.
Then you have legislator.
Nothing precludes us from doing that down the road. You know, a month or two once we get the RFPs back.
Then what's the issue with having it in the resolution?
Because it's just haphazard, Mike. There was no discussion at committee of the composite or anything definitive. You're just putting something out there and just seeing if it sticks to the wall. And I think that's wrong. I think you called me today, and thank you for calling me and telling me. You should have called me about 4 or 5 days ago, which was still after the committee process. You just thought of this last minute, had a press conference.
Let me just tell you something, Mr. Brescia. We've been working on this for a month and a half. We couldn't finish it in time to bring it to Rules or Ways and Means. When we finished it, it was Monday night. I set up the press conference because I thought it was important that we get our word out there, that we're in favor. We praised a lot of the things that we've talked about. This initiative needs to be a complex committee so that we get all views, and we're looking to possibly spend $100,000. That's what our press conference was about. I'm sad if you took it the wrong way. We didn't do it as a thing to rebuke the Republicans or the independents. We look to expand it. That's what it was about. So
and I embrace that. I embrace that input, Mike. But if you were working on it for a month, why was there no mention of it at Rules and Ways and Means? There was no mention of this whatsoever.
Sure it was,
doing
because we
anything else.
brought up, I
We
brought up
incorporated-
myself the cultural, racial, and religious conflict. I was
Right.
the one who submitted that.
And that
That
was
was part of our
incorporated.
proposal.
That was incorporated into the resolution. It was
That's
passed
right.
unanimously at Ways and Means. But all this other stuff came about afterwards. And if you were working on it for a month, you should have had the respect to mention it to the leadership of the legislature. So we could have shared it with our caucus, the Independence Caucus, and everybody else. But how to do it at the midnight hour, I think is wrong. And I certainly support oversight and possibly committee, or however we do it, but it should be discussed in committee afterwards, not today, how we make up that composite. And I like Legislator O'Donnell's ideas. They sounded great, and other ideas that were discussed here. But I think to do it right now, I just think that's wrong without further discussion. Okay,
So
there will be oversight, and there will be inclusion in that oversight.
I think that's wonderful. However, I don't see it in our resolution that there'll be an oversight committee.
Okay. Well, I don't agree it should be added here today. I think
Okay.
in the future, it
Your-
should.
your
In the
opinion.
near future, not the distant future. Okay, if there's no other discussion, can we have?
There is. Legislator Sutherland has not spoken and she has her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Janet.
Thank you. I just wanted to express my disappointment in the Democratic caucus for not bringing this. Minority Leader Paduch, you can't say that you guys have been working on this for, a month and a half and not put it out there to people. My background is social work. I have my bachelor's in social work. I have my master's in social work. I have my LMSW. I would have loved to have been a part of that. And maybe your intent was not as many of us are taking it, which was, you have a press conference and that's how everybody finds out about it. If that wasn't the intent, then I'll respect that. But I think it also needs to be looked at and understood that when you bring something like this to everybody, without going through due process, it's very disheartening. And at a time when everybody's talking about how we should be coming together and working together, this is not the way to do it, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janet. If there's no further discussion.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Hold on. Excuse me. I have raising their hand of Legislator Sierra. And if the voices could identify themselves so I could put you on the list, that would be helpful.
Lujan.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
Okay,
you.
who's next, Katie?
Sierra.
Okay, Joel, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me?
No.
No.
All right, I'm having
I can
some
see your
technical-
hand up. I can see your hand, Joel. High five. Go ahead.
I've been listening to everyone's comments, and if you don't agree with the way this was handled, I understand that. But I'm not part of leadership, and I'll let you guys debate that at another time amongst yourselves. But some of the comments I've heard tonight are not only offensive, but they're hurtful. And I know some of you get offended when you hear a statement like white privilege, but the comments that were made today were the epitome of white privilege. You've formed different committees for Green Committee, there's an airport committee, there's a sewer committee, and when a few white kids have died, when they've overdosed on opioids, we ran around, appropriated funds for this opioid committee, which I was on board and I was okay with. But this is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue. And we don't even listen to the Human Rights Commission as it is right now. They've been asking us for multiple years to give their director just a part-time assistant, and we can't appropriate the money for a part-time assistant. We don't listen to their needs now, And what's to say you're going to continue to listen to their needs or start to listen to their needs now? The historian has an assistant. We can't even give the human rights director a part-time assistant now to address concerns that are going around the county. And you're concerned with $100,000 in an $800 million budget. If that doesn't offend you by itself, and I want to thank Mr. Fagione, which shocked me with his comments. But thank you, Mr. Fagione, for your comments. But tonight is not about appropriating these funds, which, in my opinion, we shouldn't put a price tag on this. If you genuinely care and want to make a difference in your district, in this county, the money should not be an issue. Don't make this a money issue. Don't make this a Democratic issue. Don't make this a Republican issue. This is an issue about human rights. And if you want to truly make a difference in this county, to your constituency, and to our residents in this county, it should be a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, Katie, before anybody goes, I just want to say something. You know, I think that was an unfair shot at the opioid education committee because that committee knows no race, and it wasn't formed just because
that's not an unfair shot. I'm not taking shots. All I'm saying
it was
is
formed,
and it wasn't a few white kids that died either.
Exactly.
People, if you do your homework, the
you know,
people dying are middle-aged individuals.
I understand your passion, but I think that was unfair.
And there's black kids dying throughout this county every day. There's brown people dying throughout this county every day. What's getting done about it?
Well, don't you dare say that the only reason the opioid committee was formed was because a few white kids died.
I did not say the only.
Shame on you.
That's what I heard.
Shame on me for what? Okay. Shame on me for what? That's
let me say one other thing. The Human Rights Commission, nobody snubs their nose at the Human Rights Commission, but they're meeting right now, and numerous legislators have asked the Human Rights Commission to meet not on a day when they conflict with the legislative meetings.
Listen, and we can find any excuse to make a scapegoat. We can find for a no vote. You're going to find any excuse for a no vote.
Can we get back to the amendment and resolution
let's
number
get
2,
back
please?
to the amendment. Okay, who was next, Katie?
I need to. Barry now has his hands raised.
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Chairman. In looking at this specific committee and the need to form it, what was presented in the document that the Democrats have provided us seemed to look at a broader approach to countywide issues that were to deal with, specific things that the county deals with, policy and things like those types of things. And I think by putting it as a part of just this issue that's before us with the RFP, that we're really not going to get the benefit of that, of what I saw as the intent of that committee. And so I'm not sure that this is the right place for that committee to be, and have it limited to just the RFP and the subsequent findings of the RFP and the recommendations that would be derived. I'd like to see a committee that has broader responsibility in reporting to the legislature and being able to assist the legislature in working with the county government to set the policies that are necessary to deal with the issues that are before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further, Katie?
I have the only other person I have that has a hand raised, but he spoke already. I'm the only one that hasn't spoken yet, so I'm trying to just organize. Were there any verbal requests to speak from somebody that hasn't spoken as of yet? Okay, so then I'm going to go to Tom, and then I'll be the last speaker, so we can end this up.
Katie, I also said I wanted to speak afterwards.
All right, so it'll be after Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Chairman. As I read this this email that was sent less than 48 hours ago. This amendment to, and I'll call it the AMO resolution, this amendment involves several departments throughout all of our government, many of which of those departments report to our statutory committees. And in a quick read of this proposal, at least 7 of the 8 statutory committees that we have oversight over, these issues can be addressed in. So while reading this proposed amendment, which first came through as an email, I would suggest to my colleagues that perhaps they should read their legislative manual. We've each been given the manual. It's available to read online. It is there. It is written in stone. And in section 4, letter E, it says, the function of each statutory committee are essentially the same: to expedite the business of the legislature by considering policy initiative for and directives from the legislature on operations within its jurisdiction, to review operations for compliance with legislative intent, and to make recommendations for the legislature on its own initiative or at the request of the legislature. This is written in our manual. It says he's been working on this. Mr. Bennett, and in the meetings, we saw the process play out. In the Rules Committee, there was discussion, debate. From the Rules Committee vote, we went to Ways and Means, and in Ways and Means, a unanimous vote was made on the RFP. Now that you come up with all of these changes last minute, I would offer that you want to talk about policy change, you want to talk about forming a new committee, you want to talk about procedure. Let us follow our own procedure. Let us use the policy that we have in the legislature, because without those rules, we have no legislature. And to your amendment, I would suggest, like Mr. Amo did, start through the committee process. Bring your ideas through committee, and you know you always have an open door, and we can debate those issues in committee. That is where our work gets done. Today, some of this is grandstanding. Some of this is politics. What we saw on TV and in the news, you guys know, that's politics. But I'm about policy and procedure. And to your amendment, I'm willing to work with you in committee, but I'm not willing to add this to this resolution before us here today without it going through the proper channels through the committees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Kevin Deering?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, you know, this is not about one party over the other. And again, I want to echo what Minority Leader Paduch said earlier. This is and what others said. This is not about politics. This is personal. This is about people. This is about people who have been facing discrimination their entire lives. This is about the fact that we lack the understanding, many of us, about the privileges that we live with. This is about the fact that we lack equity and diversity in our workforces. This is about the fact that people get treated differently every single time, whether it's because they're a person of color and they end up being another statistic in a health data, or another statistic in jail, or another statistic in any other number of situations where Black and brown communities are impacted more. So this is not something we have not talked about. You're right. We have talked about these issues, whether it's on housing, whether it's on transportation, whether it's a number of other issues. We have talked about it. And every single time it has failed. So what we are talking about today is a committee that will actually be part of our county government. It is one that is made up of volunteers, individuals that we hire, as well as community members. They're discussing ways that we can look at that data, that information that we know is there, and advise us as legislators on issues that we could be making not only our county government and our own building better and stronger and more diverse, whether it's hiring practices or what have you, but also to discuss about other things that we could be doing differently countywide. I want to reiterate, this costs us nothing. This DEI costs us nothing. It is organized by our department, our director of human rights, our director of Steve Gross from Human Resources, and made up of individuals from our department heads. And I want to reiterate, this is the kind of things that that other organizations across the world are doing. We want to grab instead an RFP, $100,000 potentially that we may or may not spend, to find a model out there to talk to us about conflict. We have our own conflict right here. We have our own disagreements, even with each other, about even issues as simple as white privilege, because we all understand that not everyone understands that, and that's okay. I'll tell you, as a lighter skinned Latino, I know I have privilege. As a male, I know I have privilege. I don't know if everyone else, my colleagues, understand or recognize that. But this is an opportunity for us to all learn and discuss this. This DEI allows us to grow together and learn together. If this came as a shock to everyone, then let's table this resolution. Let's discuss ways that we can do this in a better way. That's fine. But let's not completely table the idea when obviously this is something that a lot of people would like to see. This is obviously something that could make a great impact. I've heard a lot of the Republicans saying and added amazing input. I mean, absolutely phenomenal input about community members. I'm totally in agreement. Let's do that. But then let's bring it back. Let's table this and let's go back to adding more teeth to it. And again, it's not going to cost you anything. This $100,000 is going to do it by itself. But this is not going to cost you anything.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay. I don't know how further you want to continue this dialogue because now people are starting to raise their hands again. It was my intent to finish this up at this point.
Yeah, why don't you let's have you finish
at this
it. We've been on this amendment for a while. Let's you finish it up.
I have people that have spoken before, so
yeah, let's bring it to conclusion.
So
Katie, before you speak, let me just say, because you're going to be the last speaker, I just want to say that believe me, there will be inclusion on the oversight once we get closer to the RFPs, if indeed we pass this resolution after the amendment goes up or down. So I just want to say that, put that out there, that there will be inclusion on the oversight and input from all legislators, especially leadership. That will happen, but I'm not going to vote for it today because I think it's just too rushed and not discussed through the committee process, as Tom Fagione said. So Katie, final comment, then we're going to vote on the amendment.
Okay, so the comments on the amendment, and forgive me because I've been trying to manage everybody, so I got to kind of organize my. Well, now I have to organize my own thoughts, and I quite frankly I understand where you're coming from, because when this came before the Rules Committee back in the beginning, during the month of June. I saw that we were in a different time in our world, as well as our county. And this particular proposal before us was structured over months, if not over a year's worth of work. And yes, in fact, it had the historical data for the community, the Hasidic and the non-Hasidic communities in the southeast part of the county. I felt strongly that, we did want a model. We did have that. We understand that there's other diversity throughout the county. We pointed out that certain cultures in the western part of the county could eventually, possibly, hopefully not, but have some situations that we would have to address. The idea was to seek professionals, worldwide people that deal with this throughout the world, to address this particular issue. But I felt strongly that we needed to include all of the things that you're talking about here. So I'm not disagreeing with you. However, I think that to put this in, first of all, I don't believe this belongs in an RFP, because actually what this resolution is it is an RFP that is to be sent out to potential bidders to go to their think tanks and come up with some strong suggestions as to models that can be formed. And once those models are formed, we're going to tailor them to the need that we're addressing. These are independent people. To put our county workers on it, or even an elected official, it was never my vision for the people that were going to do this to be elected officials. We wanted outside of that. We wanted outside look into this. Quite frankly, I think this resolution does a disservice to what you're talking about. And when you start to talk about who should be on this, you forgot where this thing came from. Nobody mentioned putting somebody from the Hasidic community on there. This is a proposal. The bidder is going to look at this proposal and say, can I meet their requirements? Can I meet their challenges? The process is that this comes in, it is reviewed by the Commissioner Burpo from purchasing. This is the process. Then it goes to law to make sure that they've met all the criteria that have been set forth in the proposal. and that they've met all of those. And then it goes to a review committee. This is a long, drawn-out process, unfortunately. And at that time, you put the particular stakeholders in there to represent, to look at these proposals. I've had the opportunity to do that in my time in the legislature. There were proposals that came in. I happened to be part of that committee for whatever reason, and I don't remember it. But I've done that a few times. No one's saying that we don't agree with this. I was the one that brought it up at Fools. I felt strongly about it. But to start to mirror this, and we're going off in all different tangents, and I think we're doing a disservice to the things that you're talking about with all of this. The chairman's already admitted that this is something that we have to address, but we have to address it in an orderly fashion and give it its just due. Just to throw this in there, to say you threw it in there, is meaningless. You've got to commit. I haven't heard anybody speak about the fact that we're not going to take this seriously. So I think the amendment is meaningless, and I can't support it. And I think the proposal should move forward, because what we're looking for is we're looking to see, is there proposals? Are there avenues out there that we can pursue? And then we're going to come back and we're going to say, okay, this is something we really want to be able to do. Then we're going to take a look and see if we really have the money, because our financial status is a little questionable at this period of time. But we're still trying to move forward with the business of the government of Orange County during these very, very difficult times.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Roll call.
Nellie? Now, this is on the amendment, correct?
Correct.
I don't hear you.
What?
Explain it, please.
Yes.
Explain the vote, please, Mr. President.
The vote is the amendment. The yes vote is to agree with the amendment, and no is not to add it.
Thank you.
Okay, Katie.
What was the makeup of this committee? What's the makeup of this committee? I didn't catch that.
It's not. Does somebody want to read the amendment back?
Excuse me, can we get clarification?
You
on
already
what-
called roll call.
Please.
Well, he's asking
Yes.
for clarification on the committee. Can you read the?
Well, actually, Mr. Paduk would have to, because it was his amendment. I don't have the whole thing written down, and.
It was a very simple amendment. I'll be more than happy to suggest. Nowhere in this document does it talk about oversight, and I wanted to add a third whereas that just simply stated that the legislature does wish to form a DEI committee for all. I'm sorry, let me just grab my thing. I had it written out for you. The amendment of the resolution, whereas would say the legislature wished to form a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee to have input and suggestions for the RFP, as well as having all reports and plans and comments addressed to this committee. It didn't talk specifically about the committee. That's up to the legislature. It's up to the chairman. I like Mr. O'Donnell's suggestion. That's the amendment.
Okay, Katie, what was your vote then? Thank you. I didn't hear you.
Okay, so this is on the amendment? No.
Okay, go ahead. Continue with roll call.
Paduk?
Yes.
Amo?
No.
Anastasakis?
Yes.
Benton?
No.
Cheney?
No.
Fagione?
No.
Hines?
Silence is a yes. Okay, continue.
Kulisek?
Yes.
It's a yes.
Kulisek, sorry.
Kulisek was a yes.
Thank you. Lujan?
Aye.
Menuda?
Not at this time, no.
O'Donnell?
No.
Riskevich?
No.
Sassy?
No.
Sierra?
Aye.
Ganga?
No.
Sutherland?
No.
Hotel?
Yes.
Dewey? Yes, for Total.
Total's yes.
No.
Yes.
We heard you.
Bureau,
No.
Brescia.
No. Okay, back to the resolution itself. If it, motion fails, back to the resolution itself. Are we prepared to vote, or is there more discussion?
Motion to table.
Hold on a second here. Hold on. I have nobody's hand raised.
Okay, we have a motion to, and that, this preempts that anyway, I guess. Motion table, is there a second motion to table?
I have Mr. Amo's hand up.
Okay, but is there a second? First,
And
is there a
Ms.
second motion to
Tortel.
table?
Second.
Okay, second. No discussion on a motion to table. Roll call on the motion to table. The yes vote is to table, no vote is not to table.
Benelli? No. Padu?
Yes.
Amo?
No.
Anagnestakis?
No.
Benton?
No, and Mr. Lujan, please mute again.
What's that? I couldn't hear you, Lee.
I said no.
Okay.
Sheedy?
No.
Fagione?
No.
Hines?
No.
Kulisek?
Yes.
Luhan?
Aye.
Menuda?
No.
O'Donnell?
Yes.
Riskevich?
No.
Sassy?
No.
Sierra?
Aye.
Stiganga?
No.
Sutherland?
No.
Tortel?
Yes.
Tui?
No.
Bureau?
No.
Brescia?
No. Okay, legislators, we've been on this for about an hour and a half. Caucus Leader Amo, I hope we can get to the actual vote on this resolution very soon. So I don't know what, we know how just about everybody feels, but do you want to say a few words, Caucus Leader? Amo?
I think it's all, we've talked a lot about, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify a couple of things and just before we move on. And that is that when you say that $100,000 seems to be an issue, and I think Mr. Fagione said it very well, this is not about 100,000. It's about the proof of concept and for us to develop the right way to think about this thing and then to address the money. We don't know what's coming back. We don't know how much the money's going to, what the is going to cost. We have no idea. We'll discuss that later. But one thing that I think is missed here, something I did when I was, Jimmy may have done it when he was working with the state. Somebody wants to form committees and do things. They think about this for a minute. Oh, it's all our own staff doing it. It doesn't cost us anything. Well, it does. It's taxpayer dollars. If you take a $100,000 a year employee, you know, that's a $48 an hour meeting. He sits in a meeting for 3 hours. It's $150. How much taxpayer money goes into what appears to just be committees that we have? I'm not saying they're not important, but don't try to paint this is going to cost 100, and if we do it ourselves, it's nothing. Because if we spend the time that the staff have, they're going to not be able to do some other things that are part of their life, part of their job here. So just recognize it. It's not free. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you have Mr. Riskevich and Mr. O'Donnell with hands raised.
Okay, Paul, go ahead then, Jim.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said before, I was going to reserve my comments for the main motion here. I've been back and forth on this resolution quite a bit here. My biggest hangup, again, is the money, the financial aspect. And as Mr. Fagione pointed out, we are not spending that money today. We're just putting it out there to see what comes back. At this point, I'm going to support it because I think it keeps the discussion on the table, and it may be an avenue to see what we get back. And I'm hoping that, in the meantime, maybe we can form a committee or find a way to address these issues without spending that kind of money. And I think we probably can. The biggest thing I'm thinking about right now, our biggest job, I know there's a lot of issues out there, but our biggest job right now, we're in the middle of a public health crisis, and we may be facing the worst financial disaster this county's ever seen. And we need to keep that in mind with everything we do. So I can't commit to, spending $100,000 down the road, but I will support this resolution to see what comes back. And in the meantime, I hope we keep this discussion going and hopefully come up with something very positive, which I think as long as we all work together, and I think we will come up with a positive solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I've heard for the past hour and a half or so is that no one is against forming a committee, all right? That committee could basically be started tomorrow, all right? Chairman Brescher, it's within your power to get that committee started. Leader Amo also laid out how long it's going to take for this RFP process to actually go through and then be brought back to the legislature. It's months. We can't wait months, all right? We need a committee now, and whether the RFP goes through or doesn't go through, I think there's overwhelming support to form this committee anyway. So I'll be voting no on this, and hopefully the leadership gets together with the county exec and all the political parties and starts the process rolling to form this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready for roll call now?
Is there anybody else that does not have the ability to use the feature of raise your hand that wants to speak? Because that's it. I don't have anybody else.
Okay, roll call.
Finelli? Let me get my head back on. This is on the proposal number 2,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Amo,
Yes.
Anagnestakis,
Yes.
Benton,
Yes.
Cheney,
Yes.
Fagione,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Kulisek,
Yes.
Luhan,
No.
Menuda,
Yes.
O'Donnell,
No.
Ruskevich,
Yes.
Sassy,
No.
Sierra,
Yes.
Segenga,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Tortel,
No.
Tui,
Yes.
Fiero,
No.
Brescia.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Kulisek.
Yes.
I would like to change my vote, please.
Yes.
To no?
You want to be a no?
Yes. Yes.
You're a no.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Yes, I'm a no. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I thought that's what you meant. Sorry. Thank you, Jim. Okay, all right, we're on to number 3, which is a voice vote. Okay,
What was the tally of the last vote?
what was the tally on?
15-6.
Probably 17-4.
16-5 with the change.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, Colonel John Bureau. Okay, number 3.
15-6.
15-6. Okay,
No.
thank you.
No, it's 59.
15-6.
15-6. Okay, thank you. Okay, number 3.
Legislators Duke and Kulisek, resolution approving Orange County's free membership in the United States Environmental Protection Agency's WaterSense program as a promotional partner to help reduce municipal water use across the country through water efficient products and construction of water efficient new homes, and authorizing the county executive to execute a WaterSense partnership agreement on behalf of the county.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call. Oh, no, I'm sorry, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Kevin's opposed? Okay. Yeah, Kevin's opposed. Okay, number 4, which is also a
Wait,
voice
who's
vote.
opposed?
I thought you said aye with the, okay.
No,
You're
I
not
was
opposed,
saying
right?
yes.
Okay,
No.
okay, everybody
yes.
yes, correct? All right, it's tough to hear on this sometimes. Okay, especially with Gene in the background here, over my shoulder. Use my good conscience right here. Okay. And I do have one, by the way. Number 4.
Legislators Kulisek and Benelli. Resolution to apply for, accept, appropriate, and implement a CARES Act Federal Transit Administration grant for the Orange County Department of Planning.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, number 5, also a voice vote. Go ahead, Gene.
Legislators Benton and Menuda. Resolution reviewing and affirming the Orange County debt management policy.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're on number 6. Okay, number 6, another voice vote. Go ahead.
Legislators Benton and Sutherland. Resolution accepting and affirming the Orange County investment policy.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 7, also a voice vote.
Legislators Benton and Kulisek. Resolution authorizing the private sale and conveyance of certain county-owned lands acquired by reason of a failure to redeem said lands from a tax sale to Orange County.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, carried. Number 8, also a voice vote.
Legislators Toomey and Patel. Resolution authorizing the county executive in conjunction with the Orange County Department of Health to accept and appropriate grant funds from the New York State Department of Health.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, well, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 9, also a voice vote. Reggie.
Legislators Cheney and Patel. Resolution providing for a public hearing upon the tentative budget for Orange County Community College for the fiscal year beginning September 1st, 2020. The public hearing would be held in the chambers of the Orange County Legislature and Orange County Government Center, 255 Main Street, Goshen, New York, or due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting will be held remotely via video conference at 3:15 p.m. on the 6th day of August, 2020.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 10.
Legislator Miscavige. Resolution authorizing the County of Orange to automatically renew existing cooperation agreements with cooperating communities listed on Schedule A attached here to for the purpose of undertaking community development and home programs for the program years commencing federal fiscal years 2021, 2022, 2023, and successive 3-year qualification periods.
Second.
Discussion? Oh, yeah, discussion, I'm sorry. I can do a voice vote, it says roll call, but okay, voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, anybody? Okay, carried. All right, 11, we'll do another voice vote. Okay,
Legislator Miscavige. Resolution authorizing the Orange County Urban County Community Development Block Grant Consortium, hearing called the county, to automatically renew and amend an existing cooperation agreement with participating municipalities for the purpose of undertaking the home program for the program year commencing federal fiscal year 2021 and continuing through federal fiscal year 2023 and successive 3-year qualification periods.
Second.
discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The desk is clear.
Desk is clear. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
I'll
I'll second it.
Okay, everybody have a great 4th of July weekend. God bless.
Oh, great.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, stay safe. Don't play with fireworks.
Especially in Newburgh, right? Middletown.
Yeah.